Shabbat shalom. Hmm. Today I just want to challenge you to think, challenging myself to think. Sometimes I think this is very uncomfortable for some, and it's partially why people disengage from conversations because some things aren't comfortable. It knocks away at your paradigm, the way you see things, your perspective. So what I'm going to call this today is what you heard, what you thought, and what is actually the truth. Is your relationship secure? Is your relationship secure? Abba Yah, thank you for this moment of time that you've given me. Allow your Ruach to guide and direct so that it's not just about my feelings and thoughts, but your will is to be done. That I challenge folks not to believe as I believe, but to come out of their comfort zone and their calm and peaceful place to see things from a different vantage point and maybe test and see if they're truly secure in what they believe. Yada Yahuwah. All right. Let me get going in. I'm going to start off with two definitions and then I'm going to basically just talk with you. So let's go to the first definition. The first definition I want to deal with is fear. It says here that fear is an intense, unpleasant, and natural emotion. We're not supposed to be ran by our emotions, but fear is an intense, unpleasant, and natural emotion triggered by the perception of danger or threat. It serves a critical evolutionary purpose by alerting the body to potential harm, activating survival instincts, and prompting the famous fight or flight or freeze response. Fight or flight. So are you going to stick in here with me and keep listening, or are you going to leave the stream, or are you going to just be froze? Okay. To explore fear more deeply, consider these four key facets. The biological response. When you encounter a threat, your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, initiates a rapid fire chain reaction. Hormones, the body releases adrenaline and cortisol. Physical changes, the hormones cause a spike in heart rate, rapid breathing, and heightened muscle tension. Purpose, this response immediately prepares you to either fight the danger or flee to safety. All right. Definition of faith. Complete trust or confidence in someone or something. I'm not asking you to have faith in me, but have faith in Yah. Be secure. Even when information challenges your paradigm, be secure. Another definition says strong belief in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual conviction rather than proof. I want to say you should have your strong belief in your relationship. I want to talk about this Bible that we have, and that's where I'm finna go in my conversation. A system of belief. All right, let me stop sharing my screen and let's get to talking. So here's my first challenge to you and to your perspective. Okay. The first five books are what called in the what we call the Bible. The Torah. Who do we give credit for writing that? Moses, right? Okay. So if the first five books are from Moses, that means the information is coming from Moses. He got the information from Yahuwah, but he is the only person, the only witness of the discussion that he had with the Most High. But if we really slow down and think, he has no firsthand experience with the information that he has given. Let's go back and look at the text itself. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen, but Genesis is what's given to us as the first book. In the creation event, Moses wasn't there. He's telling us about something that he didn't witness. And if you start from Moses' time frame, all of these events happened before Moses was even born. So why is it acceptable to believe that Moses is the only person that ever wrote about these events, even events that people, themselves participated in? Now, you have some people out here that are shaking up some people's paradigm because they're saying, okay, the Bible is not the first telling of certain events. And that would make sense because Moses' birth is so many hundreds of years after the events that he speaks upon. He speaks upon his ancestor Abraham, his ancestor Noah, who precede him. He speaks about things that happened prior to the flood. He was nowhere even thought of at that time. Let's have a thought or talk about Adam and Eve. Those are the names that we use, but Eve, Hava would probably be more so the name that was used. But just look and think about that scenario. He's giving the perspective and the vantage point again from Yah. The narrative has a man basically sitting alone with animals that he names, and he has no companion, and that a companion is brought up from out of him for him to have. So he spent time watching the companionship of animals and he himself not having a companion. So once he is given a companion, the value of those animals to him diminishes because his focus is now on his companion. Yes, he has a relationship with the Most High, but now he has someone similar to him, a companion. His focus solely was on his responsibility and the Most High at first. And now he's given a greater or a different responsibility, but now this is someone that's similar to him. So much so that he increases his value that towards that person, and the value that he sees in that person is increasing. He doesn't want to lose this person. So much so that the directives given by the Most High, he doesn't heed. He's supposed to give directives to this person. He did that. But this person went outside of those directives, and now he has a choice to make. Do I go back to the beginning position of just me, the Most High, and this work that I'm doing, or do I focus on my companion? And he ends up choosing his companion. Many will talk about that scenario and say, oh man, why he messed up. But we ignore the things that we've done for love ourselves. Many of us has done some very stupid things when we look back on it in the name of love. I wouldn't have done that. Hmm. I'm thankful that I'm able to read the book and see that Yah knows the end from the beginning. So I believe Yah knew that was going to happen all along. He wasn't ignorant of it, and he allowed it to happen anyway because it serves his purposes. Move forward after the fall. You have Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel bring forth an offering. Have we ever stopped to ask, why are they bringing forth an offering? Likelihood is because an offering was commanded for them to bring. So if an offering is commanded for them to bring, you think that there were not specifications to that offering that they were supposed to bring? When we look at that offering, we see one brought one thing and the other brought something different. One thing was pleasing and the other was not. Could it be it wasn't pleasing because they didn't follow the directives given? These are questions that we should ask. Then we see the relationship kind of go to the left. Insecurity comes in and there becomes a problem. Just talked about faith and I talked about fear. To start off, let's go back to the Adam and Eve. There should be some faith and belief in the Most High always. But with Adam and Eve, I believe he feared being alone. Oh yeah, he would have the creation and the animals, and he would have the relationship with the Most High. But as is shown, the Most High was not dealing with the man at all moments. He gave him responsibility, and he was dealing with that responsibility. And at the time of the fall, that man was entertaining the woman he had. It even says that when all of this partook and happened, that he was there with her. He had a fear that he was going to lose her, and he acted on that. That's what I believe. His fear was greater than his faith. He knew what he was commanded and directed, but he had a fear that he would lose the relationship he had began to value. Move forward to Cain and Abel. There was a displeasure going on. The offering was not pleasing to Yah. I believe that there was a fear in that situation. Cain being the older, he felt that his place possibly, he was losing place. he was not being viewed or as the number one. And so he eliminated the competition. Move forward. Noah. Noah, obedient. But let's look at the situation. I'm not going to do the fear of faith with this situation, but the way it's always been taught is like, that all of the people were mocking him and stuff like that, even though that's not in the 66 books. But he was obedient to build this ark and separate his family. But if he's doing all this work and building this ark, this big old thing, all the other people are doing what they're doing. They're not helping him. He on task, doing what he's supposed to do. Can we not think that as big as what he was making, that the other people weren't observing and watching or seeing or knowing what he was doing? And like, what this dude doing? Noah had to be secure in what he was doing and trust and believe what he was told to do. If he questioned at all, it would probably slow up the work. But he got at it and he got it done. Move forward. Abraham. Again, all of this information is given to us by Moses. That flood narrative, I'm going to just stop there. There's many flood stories spoken of in different writings. Some great flood. The biblical narrative says that the flood contained 8 survivors: Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. 8 human survivors who basically, after the flood, dispersed. Noah and his son Shem stayed together, but his other sons, the other 2 sons and their wives, kind of dispersed a little bit. So you have 8 people that are aware of a major happening. Would they not have a memory, an ability to converse about this subject? So though we hear the line of Shem, the history, we don't really see, we get vague information about Ham and Japheth, but it's very easy if the information that we are being shared with by Moses could be shared by a descendant of Japheth and a descendant of Ham easily. And remember, where's Moses when all his narrative starts? He starts out in a kingdom, a Hamitic kingdom, Egypt or Mizraim. This man wasn't raised by Israelites, wasn't raised by Shemitics. He was raised in the house of Ham. So it's very much easy that he could have already known about the flood before from reading information. Moses was a learned person. So why is it that we, seem to think that, you know, it's not possible that other people wrote about the flood and that Moses himself had learned something about that before he had his discussion and talk with the Most High. Just like we are able to decipher information, you may hear something from me, and it may sound similar to what you hear from someone else. Both situations can be true, but it's different perspectives and vantage points. So he could have heard the Hamitic version of the flood before he talked to Yah. So he could have read somebody else's writing. Not that he plagiarized, but he could have had information on the subject prior. What's so hard in that? When we see teachers bring this up or people bring this up, a lot of people are shaking and say, that the Bible was first. And there's no proof that the Bible was first in telling these narratives. We don't have it. We weren't there. But logically, seeing that Moses was not a partaker of these events, logically, it's easy to take in that someone else wrote about it first. Doesn't mean that the information is now false. It just means that there's another support that is older in date. But people, they don't want to hear that conversation. They shut it down. That shakes and basically their faith starts to flounder a little bit. Why? It shouldn't. If you lose your logic again, the whole Genesis narrative was told by Moses. He wasn't there. He didn't witness none of it unless Yah gave him like the opportunity to see, or he planted it in his memory. He didn't actually see it. He didn't partake of it himself. He was not alive. That shouldn't shake your belief. But to talk about this, some people, uh, uh, they froze him. When you hear Moses' story, what he tells about Abraham, it says Abraham knew the commands or the instructions of Yah. But everybody is teaching that the commandments start with Moses, but logically doesn't make sense. And so I know people who believe in Ma'at, and a lot of what we see in the commandments are in the tablets of Ma'at, Hamitic tablets. You know that reading in Genesis that Noah basically separated the animals clean and unclean. How would he know what was clean and unclean other than Yah told him? Well, we read on commandment about the clean and unclean. It's obvious that Noah already knew about that. But we getting it from Moses. So we don't have a particular time, but if Noah knows about it, why would he only show Shem or Shem's family line, that lineage, and he would not show Ham and Japheth? Many don't get it, that it was 8 righteous people that walked off the ark. They were all viewed as righteous at that moment. That was all that was saved out of all of mankind. Those lines in those families were not viewed as wicked. They were saved. So, we got this divide in saying that, those people aren't us, but they are all from one man, Noah. The problem comes in is the other things that they open their self up to, the beliefs. That's when the faith aspect gets challenged again, and we have a fear so much so that we ignore certain things. Abraham was in the household of his father. So his father is his lineage. His father was an idolater. He was an idol worshiper, idolater. Most High wanted to get him away from that because that was not to be his heritage. But his father was that. That's his bloodline. It's like, get away from your father, and now I'm going to separate you to myself. But his bloodline, his father, his brother, his father, they served idols. The problem was not the man himself, it's what the men were doing. He didn't want Abraham exposed to that. So Abraham was to be set apart. Abraham set apart. He got a wife, Sarai. Abram and Sarai are doing their thing, and they are promised to have a son. Fear is likely was the problem that came in again because they up in age, and Sarah like, I don't think I'm having no child. So out of fear, she gives up Hagar. But let's see, where did Hagar come from? Asking questions. Remember, prior to that situation, before Hagar is ever mentioned, they spent time in Mizraim or in Egypt. Again, exposed to them Hamites. You think the Hamites are not going to mention or have this in their history? A man comes into town with a beautiful woman, and the ruler of Egypt takes this woman, and now the wombs are all frozen up. No births are occurring. The ruler gets sick and has a dream to the point that he knows that if he touches this woman, death is going to come upon him. Fear sets in. But even before that, Abram operated in fear. If they know that you're my wife, they're likely to kill me. Fear. Say you my sister and not my bride. Pharaoh snatched her up because of that. Because he wanted her. She beautiful. Oh, you ain't got no husband? Oh, that's your brother? Come on. But it shook up his household. Excuse me. Hmm. Fear, fear, fear. Fear of Abraham. Then that king of that Pharaoh, he feared for his life. And so in him not touching Sarah, giving her back to Abram, he also gave off one of his daughters to be a servant to Sarah, that daughter being Hagar. So you got this royal man giving away one of his daughters. Probably a daughter of a concubine, but still his daughter all the same. So she comes from royal seed. Abram, and Sarah has this woman. Moving forward, you got the scenario. Old, old, old. Both of them old. Promised the son. Here, lay with my servant. So this daughter of a Pharaoh is who Abram laid his seed. And that's when Ishmael comes into play. This child, not of faith, but a child of fear. That's his firstborn son biologically, but spiritually not so, because that's not the child of promise. The child of promise was going to come through Sarah. But of course, she feared that her womb was going to be unable to produce. And that man succumbed to that fear. I don't think he had the fear, but he succumbed to his woman. He listened to his woman because, again, just like Abraham, and goes back to looking at the Adam and Eve situation, just like the Adam and Eve situation, Abraham considered his woman, wanted to please his woman. Carnally, you could say, oh man, he wanted to be with that woman. But when you look at the narrative on it, I'm gonna tell you like this. If we look at it through these modern recent times, you're like, man, Abraham was a deadbeat daddy. He raised that boy up, had him up to a teenager and everything, and then he put him out because his wife said, put him out. Get out. You got to read other books to see that he still kept in contact with the boy. But again, now you got this boy. If you read the other books, you see he has a jealousy or a fear that he's being replaced by Isaac or it's Yitzhak to the point that he wants to kill Yitzhak. That's why he has to be put away. We just, the way the narrative is, if you just get the short telling of the story that from Moses' view of it, or what we told is Moses' view, it's almost like Abraham or Abram being a deadbeat dad. But no, this boy was a threat to the promise of Yah. He had to go. It had nothing to do with deadbeatness or whatever. But if you only get a part of the story, which we only got part of the story, we only getting all the time. If you look at the Torah aspect, we only getting Moses' vantage point, and he wasn't even there. When you get Yasher, I guess you could say that, or maybe Joshua or whatever wrote that, or Yahushua. But still, you're not getting the information from people who are actively in that moment. So you don't get all aspects. You don't even get the perspectives or how the people involved felt. You don't get to know their fear. You don't get to know their faith directly. You only get the perspective that's given by Yah through Moshe. A lot of questions to ask with that. Whole lot of questions. But of course, most people don't feel comfortable asking it because it would challenge their paradigm. They would rather, ask questions of each other as far as character and stuff like that, and maybe separate from people because now you're taking away my comfort. I'm just doing a little rambling and talking today because this is what I feel like doing. This is some of the stuff that I go through when I'm looking at the text. I'm asking the questions and seeing, that my own thoughts don't really matter because my thoughts sometimes come up, with conclusions that don't line up with what's really going on because my view is affected by what I'm living now, this lifetime I'm living now, how we see things. I'm like, let me just jump a little bit further and just, skip the line a little bit. When you look at the relationships between the melanin or the Israel, what we call ourselves Israel, and these palm skin people. You want to sit up and, a lot of people, oh, them Edomites. That's some bull crap anyway. But you want to have a problem with them, and it's like, okay, they treated us wrong. They doing all this stuff. The white man is, and it's like, let's slow down and think. When we were in obedience as a people to Yah, there was not a nation could touch us. So everything that is really happening is self-inflicted. But we would rather have a scapegoat or somebody else to blame rather than ourselves. It's true enough. The stuff that they do is wrong. But how did we get here? If we really look at it, we have to take credit. We have to raise our hand and say, I'm at fault. Because if we were in his will, in his way, there's nothing no one could do to touch us. But we open that up. A lot of times, comfort is our biggest enemy. We get comfortable, get very comfortable in doing as we will, and we forget. That's why it's good to have these biblical narratives and stories and stuff like that to see the principles behind it. A lot of times, we've been told as allegories, but I believe a lot of this stuff actually happened, but is given to us as allegories because if you look at one scenario, you can find similarities in another biblical scenario to show you the same principle occurring over and over and over again. Whenever Israel went forth and forgot about Yah, they started doing their own thing, and then they get reintroduced to the instructions of Yah. They would tear their clothes because they would have been thinking that they were living right, only to find out they were not doing anything that Yah had directly told them to do. But they forgot the law. They forgot the testimony. And right now, we live in a land that's not our own land. And so we so heavily influenced by what's going on in this land that we view things through that vantage point. Most people modernly have a problem here in America with polygyny. Oh, that's not how it originally was. And it's like, we have no information at all about all of those people that was going on before the flood, how they were cohabitating, if they were operating in polygyny. We have Lamech, we have small little stories that showed that that was happening, but we don't have the full detail because, of course, Moses is what we're trusting for our information, and he only had a limited view of things. He's speaking on stuff that not he had no firsthand experience. And then we see polygyny all through this book being the foundation of Israel, the foundation of many of the people that we love so much. But we want to throw polygyny away, but we don't want to acknowledge the other mishaps in relationship that's going forth. A lot of the people that we see are special has some very disruptive home settings. Again, I spoke on Abram. Abram's father was an idolater. If you go to other books, you see that his father hid him away and basically let Noah and Shem raise him because Nimrod wanted to kill him. Nimrod, who his father served, but that's not in what we call the Bible, the 66 books. Not just that. Let's go. Let's just jump forward again. We had the prophet Eli. His son's hot mess. This the priest, but his son's hot mess. We have a man who has two wives, I believe. It's two wives, but his first wife got children. The second wife doesn't. This second wife is crying and going through it as if she's intoxicated because she wants to have a child. Thing is, she going through it so much, she like, just let me have a child. I will give this child away to the ministry. And that's what she did. When she had that child, which is Samuel, he gave that child to Eli. Eli, whose own children he raised up, and they some wicked boys, he raises up Samuel. So Samuel, he not raised by his parents. He raised in the house of Eli. The Most High has a heavy hand in this, but you could ask some questions. How Samuel emotionally deal with his relationship with his parents, because he's being raised by another person. Some people ain't even gonna ask that question. It don't matter. But then when you see when he himself has sons, his sons is wicked just like Eli's son. He was a good man. He was obedient to Yah. He's leading over the people, but he can't even lead his own household. His sons wicked to the point, so much to the point that the people say, "No, we don't want them ruling over us." The people decide they want a king. They want to be like the other nations. Samuel did a great job dealing with the people, but as a father, he wasn't no better than Eli. Come on. The people didn't want nothing to do with his sons. They wanted to have a king like the other nation because they couldn't trust them sons. They had a fear going on that something was, it was going to be a mishap, and they want let us pick somebody. Let us pick somebody. And guess what? They picked Shaul. Shaul. This is an interesting thing though. Shaul, he looked he looked the job, but man, that dude was so insecure in himself. He like, why me? He went forth being the king and everything, but he's so busy trying to please the people and not please Yah, not listen to Samuel. Because what? He didn't have a relationship. He didn't have faith. But the people picked him. The people picked him not because of his character, not because of his reputation that he was just, this Yah given man, but man, he sure enough looked the part. But he wasn't a secure man. You can read it, the narrative, and see he wasn't. Because when David came on the scene, when he basically, we see he already tried to please people, and Yah said, no, somebody else gonna sit in his seat. Funny thing though, he sends Yah sends Samuel to Yeshi's house, or Ishi, whatever you want to call him, send it to his house, and he's like, this man got a whole bunch of sons. He's like, oh man, that want to make a good king. Samuel doing just like the people, looking. Oh man, he got the stature. He finna get him another salt, and y'all like, not that one, not that one. And he went through so many. The father presenting these sons, man, he ain't even consider David. He's like, man, you got another son? Oh yeah, that boy that's out there with the sheep. Let me call him in. The disregarded one, the one that's looked over. He got he got prime looking sons. They looked, but the one out there, that one. Oh, him? So this man was disregarded, and so much. You go watch the sheep. You go watch the livestock. You think, I don't know. I'm the one that's think about that. Like, man, you got all these other brothers that just look the part and everything, and you can't tell me that dad didn't treat him like he's the sheep herder son. He ain't treat him like he was a possible king. He didn't view him as that. Because when the man came looking for one of his sons for a king, he didn't even present him. That son had you got one more? You got one more? Huh? You're like, oh yeah, I got that one. That father, come on. What kind of confidence is he building up in that son? But of course, this is stuff I think about. Everybody ain't thinking about that. This son come up and he get told he gonna be the king. He like, okay. He deal with Goliath and stuff like that. But when he go to the battle to deal, to bring his brother something to eat or whatever, however the story is told, the brother like, man, what you doing here? He wasn't even wanted there by his brother. And his brother, he speaks up like, "Hey, y'all gonna let this uncircumcised Philistine?" His brother like, shut up. You a little runt. He didn't have the respect of his siblings, didn't have the respect of his father. And then he did all that, and then they, oh, surprise some folks. But people look down on him. They had no expectations on him. Look at you. Probably people didn't have no expectations on you either. I know people didn't have no expectations on me. Man, that could bring forth fear and insecurity. You think you isolated and the only one that deal with, questions on, am I right for the job? The same man, Moshe, basically, am I right for the job? I know I'm jumping everywhere, but come on, David, am I right for the job? Huh? Me? Moshe, y'all had to tell you, Ahiah, Ashar Ahiah, I am that I am. He had to view himself as Elohim of Aaron, Elohim of Pharaoh. I don't even speak right. A lot of people make it like, he was unlearned, but no, that man was highly learned, multiple languages. But the problem is, being around his people was not something that was common to him. He spent his first 40 years in Pharaoh's house. So yeah, Egyptian language he was probably fluent in that, real good in that. He knew his own language, but where's the dialogue? Where was he having regular conversation with his own people? And when he spoke to him, hey, don't do that to your brother. You gonna kill us like you killed the Egyptian? Then he what? 40 years in the wilderness and dealing with Midian and the Midianites. Yesi. I mean, not Yesi. Come on, Jethro and Zipporah. Then he finally comes back, and that's why he has to have his brother as his mouthpiece. But most people don't get it. The brother is recognized as a leader in Israel before he comes around. And so now you got this person speaking to you and giving you directives. If you look at the narrative, you see that him and his sister was kind of like, we leaders too. They kind of was always second guessing Moses. And then, even when he leave Aaron in charge, what do? He created an idol for the people. He letting the people influence him. Fear again. He didn't have Aaron's relationship with the Most High is not really spoken of like that. When Moses went to the tent of meeting to talk to the Most High, you see Yahushua there more than you see Aaron. The person that's gonna follow Moses up is there, not Aaron. Once Aaron made that mistake, Yah was done with him, but most people don't even ask that question and see that. They just look at, oh, the Levites, and Yahushua wasn't no Levite. Aaron, Moses was, but Aaron messed up some stuff. And if you look at it, let's go back to this thing how we view stuff as deadbeat. Moses, where was his he was a great leader of Israel, but where was his leadership in his household? You don't see much communication on how he was raising up his sons, how he was loving on his wife. You don't see that. Another deadbeat. Your thoughts could go there, but he's seen as one of the greatest leaders of Israel of all times. But when it came to his house wasn't in order. That's why I be laughing at how some people will go to the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, and say, that, a bishop, a husband of one wife, and, basically his household has to be in order. And I'm like, if that was the standard of leadership, did Moses even fit that standard? And I'm asking these questions to myself. These people, when you ask these questions to people, they be like, it offends them. That fear start kicking in. Let's go back to David situation. Okay, this man following after and playing music for Shaul or King Saul, and King Saul trying to kill him. So in fear, he got to go. He ain't secure in his settings because he like, I can't touch Yah's anointed. So his relationship with Yah is solid, but he got to move in fear because this man trying to kill him to the point that he acting like he crazy, foaming at the mouth, all this different stuff, hiding places. Fear. It prolonged his story though. But again, remember, he spoke on his relationship in his household. Before he was raised up to be king, he was basically looked over and like one thing that interests me, that this is kind of like a side note, when you look at Shaul, King Saul, or whatever, King Saul is said to have multiple wives. So the first king of Israel had multiple wives. And guess what? Dawid had multiple wives too. King Saul gave his daughter, Michelle, to David before David was a king. It don't mention none of the wives being queens. And I'm like, if the first king had multiple wives, what, he had a lot of queens? Which one was the top? First one or whatever. So David, his first wife was before he was even put in the kingship. And it's Saul's daughter, so she, okay, she from the bloodline of a king, but she was given to somebody else for a minute, and then he got her back. But he got a whole other one. So how should this woman didn't even, as far as it said, did she even have any children with him? So if she was the queen or the top one, his heir ain't come from her. That's that queen talk. People be queen. I keep asking people over that. I make people mad on that. Like, show me a righteous queen of Israel, a righteous queen of Yahudah. Can't show me none. The two queens of those places, Queen Jezebel, wicked. Atalia, wicked. Those that are mentioned as sovereignest queens, show me a righteous one. And they're always, well, Esther. And Esther was not a queen of Israel or Yahudah. She was married to a Syrian or whatever, or supposed to be married to. But hey, he housed her in the house of the concubines. The man that guarded the concubine house guarded her. So was she a wife or was she a concubine? Hmm. When you check the Persian history, you don't see nothing about her as a wife. But when you ask these questions, it shake people up. It throw them off. Don't it makes it messes them up because they can't deal with these questions. But again, go back with Moses and say, well, he wrote the first five books, but most of the events in the first five books happened way before his time. A lot of the other Bible books or whatever, especially the Brit Hadashah. Brit Hadashah is talking about Yahushua, but those books were written mostly 50 years after. So it is not anything that the people of that time frame, even Yahushua, seen as their instructions because they didn't have it to read. And you say that, oh, but that's scripture, it's scripture. It's like, well, it wasn't scripture to the people that's in this book because they didn't have it. And when you keep saying that, oh, you trying to say the New Testament? No, I didn't say it was fake. I didn't say it was not true, but it would not be on the level of what scripture, it would not be what those people in that book studied because they didn't have it. It wasn't written for them to study it. Oh, and I'm like, can you stop for a minute and just think? There's nothing wrong with us using our minds. Yah gave us these minds to use. But when you're challenged to use the mind, most people rather disconnect. Like I say, go back to the beginning. Moses is writing about stuff that he was not there. He was not privy to actually be there, witness actual. He was given information from Yah. And everything has to be certified by two witnesses, two or more witnesses. The Torah is given by Moses. Where are the two witnesses of it? I don't require that it do. I take it in and I believe that it's, yeah, my Ruach is enlightened when I read it. But I'm like, come on, that standard right there that you're hearing, it's a great standard. But a lot of stuff that we read fails to have a secondary witness. Most people will bring forth Paul said Shaul said Paul said, and you don't have a secondary witness to anything that he's saying. And he'll say himself, I say. So it's his thoughts. This man, we have no record of him being married, but he'll tell you about marriage. You don't have any experience of it. So how are you such a great authority on this? Well, I say. And I'm not saying that he doesn't come with great information or thoughts, but should it not be questioned and challenged? And then you say, okay, study to show yourself approved or test every spirit. So is he not a spirit that needs to be tested? And why do most people who call themselves Christian use his information as the foundation of everything that they do? They don't even do what Yahusha says. They do what Paul says. So which one, who are they really following? I trust Shaul, but I know that he is a Torah believing person. I think it's is it Philippians 3, I think it is. He speaks of himself following the Torah, blameless. So if you're reading it and what you're reading is contradictory to the Torah, then you need to question it. When he says, the bishops and these different titles, where are those titles at in the Torah? They're not there. The husband of one wife. I question him. Did Moses have one wife? We know about Zipporah, but then it says something about the Ethiopian woman. She was a Midianite. So she definitely wasn't Ethiopian. Most people don't even want to deal with the thing that Midian Midianite, the people of Midian, are Hebraic. How so? Hmm. Abraham married Keturah and had a son called Midian, who the Midianites come from. So they are from the bloodline of Abraham. The Hebraic. Yeah, they became enemies. So did Edom. So did Ishmaelites. So did the children of the east, other Abraham seed. Surprise! Man, look, skipping around. Look at Yahushua. Yahushua gets little to none, no reverence whatsoever. But he followed after Moshe. Moshe a lot of times left him in a tent meeting, went to deal with the people. So Yah was dealing with him directly too. It spoke of a leader coming out of their midst that would hear face that Yah would deal with face to face. Yahushua was left in the tent of meeting with Yah, so he dealt with him face to face. So much so that when this man finished bringing the people into the land, he said, "Far as me and my family, we're gonna serve Yahuwah. Y'all ain't gonna be able to do it." The people like, "Oh, yes, we will." Yahushua walked in righteousness the rest of his days, and all of the elders of that time frame also did. Yahushua died, and the elders still were walking in righteousness. People don't want to talk about this because they say, "Oh man, we ain't gonna get right until you know, till we meet up with Yahusha." And I'm like, righteousness has been achieved here on earth. Walking in Yah has been achieved here on earth through Yahushua way before the time of Yahusha. So it's been shown to be very much possible. And many will ignore, even in the Brit Hadashah, when you look at the parents of Yahukanan or John, the narrative of the fathers, I think it's Zechariah, him and his wife Elizabeth were righteous. Maybe I should even go there and show y'all that, because I ain't really been showing no scripture. I've been doing a lot of talking, but I'm like, people don't want to acknowledge that it speaks of there being righteousness before the death, burial, and resurrection, even before the birth of Yahusha. Let me see if I can, let me show you. Okay. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go. I'm um I'm gonna hit it real quick on this, and I'm gonna keep talking because I'm just rambling a little bit. I'm talking. I'm having a good time myself, because this is stuff that I like to talk about with myself, and of course, it may cause people some problems and some struggles, but hey, this is for me. I'm gonna listen to this again. I'm gonna watch this video again for myself because this is the type of stuff I be talking to myself, and so I'm talking to this screen today, so I don't have to talk to myself. And then I'm later on, I'm gonna play it back and listen to myself. But let me share my screen real quick, and I'm gonna go over here to Lucas or Luke 1. All right, share my screen. There you go. I'm gonna do a little, just small little bit of reading. And it says, since many have indeed taken in hand to set in order an account of the matters completely confirmed among us, as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and services of the word delivered them to us. It seemed good to me as well, having followed up all these matters exactly from the beginning, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you might know the certainty of the words which you were taught. So this is a goodie. This was a letter written to Theophilus. Wasn't This wasn't something shared with everybody. Again, it's written to this one person, and here goes in the words. Here it says, "There was in the days of Herodes, the sovereign of Yahudah, a certain priest named Zachariah of the division of Abiah, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elisheba." So these were Levitical people. And they were both righteous before Elohim. What? They were both righteous before Elohim, non-righteous. But they were both righteous before Elohim, blamelessly walking in all the commands. They were walking in Torah and righteousness of Yahuwah. You can't make this up. It's right there in the text. But they say, believe the Brit Hadashah or the New Testament, but then they don't even believe it themselves. Because they say righteousness only comes through Yahusha. These were obedient and thus righteous and blameless without the sacrifice. Obedience is greater than sacrifice, you know. I can show you that too. That's in Samuel, it says that, but they're like, oh no, the blood of Yahusha. I'm not against the blood of Yahusha. But you see somebody walking blamelessly, righteous. Yahushua did it too. The servant or the disciple of Moses. But you can't walk righteous without the blood of Yahweh. Get your story straight, or oh, I get it. A lot of you are bringing in Christianity, what you learned in Christianity. You ain't really reading and applying what you read. You're applying what you heard. So again, go back to what I said to start off. What did I say this was called? Let me see. I called this. Let me see. I had to go back to my notes. I call this what you heard, what you thought, and what is actually the truth. Is your relationship secure? Is your relationship secure? Because I just showed you what's actually there. What you heard was only by the blood, but there wasn't no blood shed. He wasn't even born yet. What you thought, or what's the truth? What's the truth? Hmm. Got you in your feelings a little bit. Did you turn it off? Oh, anyway. Let's go back again. Dawid. Hmm. We talked about Eli being a bad dad. We talked about Samuel being a bad dad. Hmm. Abraham wasn't a bad dad because he checked on Ishmael, but you got other texts. A lot of these stories, we don't have all the full details, but the information we do have is interesting because Dawid, I don't know what type of husband he was, But when it come to being a dad, it seemed like he was failing at that. He wasn't the best dad, not from what I'm reading. But again, that's my perspective. He was a great king when he was doing his king thing, but whenever he, got comfortable, that's when he started doing whatever. He seen Bathsheba bathing when he got comfortable, when he wasn't out at war with his people, that he always was out at war with. Comfort. Actually, that's a great enemy. But when it came to his children, what? What? One of his sons raped one of his daughters because he had multiple wives. Them kings and multiple wives is kind of interesting. The one specific king that I know with a monogamous relationship was Ahab and Jezebel. But most of them other kings had more than one wife. They don't want you talking about that because the leader, the bishop, the deacon, the husband of one wife. The leaders in Israel consistently, most of the time, the ones, especially the righteous ones, the ones that we have most acclaim about, had multiple wives. Ooh. They don't want to deal with that though. Man, that Dawid though, he's an awesome king. A king after Yah's own heart. Because when he made a mistake, he would always try to rectify it. Move forward and look at Hezekiah. Hezekiah is an interesting tale because this man sick, becomes sick, and he gets basically a death sentence. He was told he was gonna die, that he is for sure he's gonna die. But he prayed and that changed up. He feared dying and he kicked into his faith and it changed the outcome. That death sentence that he had years added on to him. He had years added on to him. I'm saying that for a reason, but I'm gonna move past that. Problem comes about with them years added on, he get comfortable. I'm living in my palace, my kingdom. I'm doing. Oh, you got some guests? Man, let me show you. Hey, look at what I got here. Look what I got here. He letting these folks see everything in his kingdom. And basically, everything that he showed later on, when he had deceased and his descendants took over, all that stuff was taken out of that kingdom. Because what you doing? Look at this. Look at what I got here. You don't let just anybody in your house. He got comfortable. I got this, I got that. And they took this and they took that. Hezekiah, though, that's an interesting story. Isaiah seen it all. Isaiah wrote about it all. But of course, there's some stories about Hezekiah that people say that ain't about Hezekiah. But anyway, let me move on. Man, the book of Maccabees is not in the Bible. Not in the Bible we have currently, because the Bible we have not currently has 66 books. But the original King James, the original translation had the Maccabees in it. It's in the Apocrypha now, but or it's a separate book. But man, we see faith exhibited in Second Maccabees 7, I think it is. Oh man, 7 sons, all standing strong on their faith and not allowing fear of death to consume them, all in front of their mother. Antiochus. Who's Antioch? Antioch is named after him. You know, everybody always said they became Christians in Antioch. Antiochus, Antioch. That's a Roman Greek state, influenced by Roman Greek. Antiochus basically, what he do? He perverted the, the temple and was doing sacrifices of unclean things, forcing the people to eat swine. And the ones that wouldn't, he tortured them. Them 7 sons, he tortured them. But now people say, oh, anything he created is clean. No, he defined clean and unclean to the point that no one knew about it before. But see, again, that goes back to it. Moses is the one telling the story of Noah. So Noah knew about that standard way before there was a Moses. That standard existed through time. And now they say, oh, it must have changed. It changed. Yah says you can eat swine, this unclean thing. But you got all these Judeans or Yahudim being killed for not eating it. So if you can eat it, they must have died in vain. They could have ate it then too. If it's lawful now, no, it's not lawful. An Israelite and the Yahudim would never eat that because they didn't consider it food. All food is good, but they would have never considered that food. It's waste management. They would have never considered it food, and they never did. You see nothing that clearly says you can eat swine. Even in the narrative of Yahusha, what you see, evil spirits in a man. They asked evil spirits, when they get cast out, they went inside the swine. And then the swine ran into the water. Legion. Unclean thing went inside of unclean thing. Whatever you lend your members to, you become. So if we're supposed to be clean, why would we want to put something unclean to us and become unclean? You wouldn't want to do that. But people will justify eating something that is full of worms, something that has nothing but adverse health conditions come behind it. Oh, we can eat that. And again, a whole set of sons, 7 sons, persecuted for not doing that. But yet, we can do that. I ain't trying to put fear on that, but I'm trying to put some faith on that. My faith is that Yah has not changed, just like he said. Same today, yesterday, as he is tomorrow. That's consistent with the word. That's consistent with his reputation. But of course, people don't read it. I can go and show you where it says he don't change. I can show you where Yahushua's same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. But people say, oh, every creature is good for you to eat. And I'm like, well, okay. So man became a new creature, so they good to eat too? Let's think. Let's think. Say, oh, man that look upon a woman has sinned and committed adultery. And I'm like, okay, when you in a courtship situation. You look upon this woman to become your wife. If that's sin, what are you doing? Come on. That's not what it's saying. If you really look at what that's saying, it says men that look upon another man's wife with lust. So that goes back to the law where it says coveting your neighbor's wife. Yahusha was just basically retelling the law, but they changed the word to say woman and ignored that it originally said wife. Someone espoused to another. She's already connected to another man. So no, you shouldn't be looking at her. That's what it means, but they changed it up to try to make it something different. Just like the whole thing, thou shalt not kill. No, it says thou shalt not murder. We don't eat no animals. Okay, so when you take an apple off the tree or grape off the vine, did you not kill that? You took it away from his life source. That's what technically what killing something is you taking it away from his life source. But we don't view that as killing vegetation or fruits or whatever, but it's separating it from his life force. That's what you're doing to a human when you kill them. That's what you're doing to an animal. You're separating them from their life force. But we're taught to look at it in a way it's not biblical at all. Because if someone is attacking you, if somebody was raping my daughter and I walk in on that and I kill them, I'm justified by the biblical law. Thou shalt not kill. Oh, so I'm supposed to just allow it. No, deal with that. A lot of folks go on what they heard, what they thought, and not what's the truth. I say a lot of stuff that I think on in my opinions, and again, I still fall back on the law, even though sometimes I don't agree with the stuff or whatever. I'm like, I'm a man of one wife, but I know that I could have more or whatever, but I don't want more. I'm a man that I don't really teach people premarital sex or whatever and stuff like that. My thoughts though, I'm like, man, I had premarital sex or whatever, and I really I personally wasn't feeling like something wrong with it or whatever and stuff like that, especially if it leads to marriage. But then again, I don't feel like that's the best productive way. I think we should wait. But I'm like, there's a conflict in me because I didn't do that. I didn't wait. But then I did wait. It's like, me and my wife, and then we pulled away from each other 11 months and didn't touch each other until we consummated the marriage. But, I dated her in high school. So we were intimate back then. And I don't need to get all up into that, but it was like, she's always the woman that should have been my wife. But of course, I was not mature enough, and I'm still battling with not being mature. I'm 54 years old, and I still act very childish in a lot of areas. I'm one that insecure in a lot of areas because this leader that I know that I am, I don't have comfort in that. Maybe that's a good thing. Probably is a good thing because I know I don't have the charisma that many have. And I never used to be comfortable talking. Now I'm more comfortable talking than ever. And people say, "Oh, I wish you would shut up." I used to be the quiet guy. I used to be the timid guy. I'm not that anymore. Y'all brought me out of my comfort zone. Jeremiah was an insecure. Like, this ain't what I see myself. But he knew, Yah told him, I knew you in the womb. Moses was insecure. I can't do this. Oh, okay, here go Aaron then to help you out. Dawid doesn't seem to be the most secure person when you look at the narrative because, again, his daddy didn't choose him. Really. His daddy like, I got one more. Come on. You see a lot of conditions in the book to show people, I'm like, man, come on. Again, I mentioned how Samuel was just basically given to the ministry here because his mama wanted that, she wanted that baby so bad, she's like, I give it to the most, I'm gonna dedicate it here. It affected, you can't, I believe personally that affected his parenting. He was focused only on the ministry to the point that he didn't raise up his sons with integrity like he had. But the example he had was right before him is Eli, who had sons that didn't walk in integrity either. You know, it's hard sometimes to get past the examples that you have before you. And when you do succeed past that, still, that's not enough for people. It's never going to be enough. Never. So you got to ignore trying to please the people. You don't want to be King Saul trying to please the people. Come on. Please Yah. Worry about what Yah. Obey Yah. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when you may lose relationship. Bump what people heard. Bump what people thought. Operate in truth. Ahia, Ashar Ahia. The truth is, if Yah before you, it don't matter who against you. And you're going to possibly deal with some insecurities. But know this, if Yah is giving you the directive, you think He's not going to give you the tools and the ability to fulfill what He has asked of you. Do you think that? Come on. Trust and believe He about His word being done. He don't change. And He don't give you an assignment that He doesn't believe that you can complete. My assignment right now today is to make some of y'all think. I don't want you to have my doctrine. It's not about you having my doctrine. You got to be open to the Ruach so the Ruach can show you where you need to be. I'm here to challenge myself and challenge whoever's hearing this. Bump what you heard, bump what you thought, get in the word yourself, study to show yourself approved. I hope that some of the stuff that I said now had you, thinking outside of the paradigm of what you think. Because if you think Moses wrote the first five books, if you that's what you believe, I believe that too. You got to know Moses was not there in the beginning. And the likelihood of somebody else telling that story before Moses is very much likely. So what? It shouldn't shake you. It should not bother you that, you shouldn't be sitting up there trying to prove that Moses was the first one to say it, because the likelihood is not there. That shouldn't shake you. You should still believe in what you believe, regardless of that or not. I don't care what teacher. I love when Barry is a teacher out there be challenging folks because people don't get it. If you that shaking and if you can lose your faith off of something that somebody else puts forth, did you really even have faith? Come on. Oh, they need to shut his page. Why? If you that weak that what somebody else say can stir you away from what you supposedly know, you don't know it. You have no intimacy with that at all. The problem is not them, the problem is with you. You should be able to hear from any source. I used to have a problem. I used to be like, I ain't listening to no Farrakhan. But if Farrakhan is speaking truth, I can hear it. No, I'm not following his doctrine, but I can hear it. I can hear from Price. I can hear from all these different leaders. I've heard from so many different Hebraic people. I ain't gonna mention their name because they'll take it like I'm slandering or like I'm knocking them like they shouldn't be heard. I'm like, I'm the leader of my household. I don't need a man to lead me. Y'all leading me. But I can hear from these different leaders and I can take the parts that y'all say, take that. And I can push away the parts that he said, push away. Some of the stuff you're supposed to accept. You should be able to sift through this stuff, hear information, and challenge it. But no, most of y'all want to be on autopilot and don't want something to make your road rocky. That rockiness helps you build endurance. We're supposed to be enduring to the end. And so you need a little bit of pressure. You need a little bit of challenge. Got to start asking questions and then thinking this stuff through, and not letting what you think on push you off your square, but saying, okay, there's other perspectives. Other people could see this thing differently than I see it, and be okay with that. You don't have to agree with everybody. Most people will run that scripture, they'll run it to death and not know the context. How should two walk together unless they agree? Huh? Did you read that thoroughly? It's talking about Yah and Israel. How should two walk together unless they agree? Yah and Israel must agree. If you've been married any length of time, you're gonna know that you walking together with your spouse, and there are many times that y'all don't agree, but you're still walking together. Don't give you no reason to divide just because you don't agree. There's a lot of stuff that you disagree with, but that's not the main thing. As long as you agree upon the main thing, that little thing you disagree with, so what? I think women should wash the dishes. I think men should, We don't agree on that. Let the kids do it and keep moving. If you got children old enough, let the children do it and keep moving. That ain't the focus or whatever, because your walking yard should be the main focus. So them dishes that's minute. I think a man should pick up his clothes after him. Yeah, he should, but you gonna leave him because that y'all been together 20 years and he been leaving his 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 pants on the floor and you have to pick up. But y'all been together 20 years and now you want to use that as a reason to divide. Now you just being messy and petty. Because if you didn't leave in the beginning off of it, it ain't serious enough to leave off now. Just deal with it. Get used. That's what they do. We have so many situations before us where we don't agree and we still keep walking. That ain't talking about us. I'm like, because, hey, I like football. My friend likes basketball. We don't agree upon that. I say basketball the greatest. He say football the greatest. So we shouldn't walk. You got to get the context and use it right. Rightly dividing. Some stuff that's like in sports or whatever, that's minimal. That's irrelevant. But when it comes to this yacht thing, we got to agree upon that or give time for them to come to the conclusion. Because I'm like, man, I had Israelites dealing with me when I was a Christian and walking in that, and I was rejecting anything any Israelite brought before me, rejecting it. but they stuck in there and was like, we're gonna keep on, breaking bread with you, until you get this. And they didn't make me get it. I started studying myself, and then I got it. And a lot of them I ain't dealing with no more. But I didn't separate with them off of doctrine. And it's just, we just don't, time don't allow, and we just, they serve their purpose. The season is over. But you can't use a lot of stuff because I'm like, if they would not have spent the time with me, would I had eventually broken down and got where I'm at? Some people decide somebody not worth the effort and stuff like that. And you don't know where they're gonna end up at. Biblical. Let's go biblical. What happened? You got Paul, Silas end up together, but who was together first? He was with Barnabas. Barnabas said, I want Mark to come along. He like, nah. So they separated. Paul went with Silas. Barnabas went with Mark. But then you look later on. Paul had discounted Mark, but later on, he in his writings, he said, hey, get Mark. He's of value to the ministry. The same person that he discarded and was like, no, I don't want to, later on. Shoot, Kepha and Shaul or Peter and Paul, they didn't get along a lot of times, but they still had one goal, Yahusha and Yahuwah's kingdom. We got to get over ourselves. I'm like, man, because a lot of folks, when I left certain ministry or whatever, I'm going to people cut ties with me. They're not my enemies. I still fellowship with them. You didn't see me on videos and stuff like that. And they be like, oh, what you doing there? What you mean? Just because I'm not a member there, don't mean I can't fellowship with them. They're still friends. They're still mishpah. I don't have to have members. You shouldn't have, that's Christianity. You shouldn't have to have membership nowhere to be associated with people to be seen as family. We're supposed to be members of the kingdom. These individual assembly stuff, whatever, I don't have a problem with it, but you don't have you don't have to be locked in membership to anything. You don't have to be. And if somebody says that that's a requirement, they're lying. Show me that in the Bible. None of these assemblies are mentioned in the Bible. This is something that we have put together and stuff like that. They did not have membership. They did that. We were members of the kingdom of Israel. We wasn't members of these individual assemblies. They went from house to house, so they wasn't loyal to just one house. They went from house to house. Sometimes what they say, well, they over there, praying in your name or praying in the authority of Yah. And what they get told? Leave them alone. Don't stop them. Let them if they not against us, let them keep going. But no, people want to be divide and conquer. They want to have these denominations and stuff like that. I'm on this camp. I'm on this. If we ain't fellowshipping together, there's a problem. There's a breach. I don't have to have membership to no place, but I should be able to be mishpah with whoever. I don't begrudge nobody who has membership. But if you disassociate with somebody because they're not a member, then you got a problem. You're not operating off this book. You operating off what you heard, what you thought, and not the truth. Abba Yah, thank you for this Shabbat. Thank you for this opportunity. Just want to talk to myself, talk to the people. Let your Ruach exist in edifying whoever has heard this. Let them come up with their own questions and their own thoughts and sift them through with your word. Hold them up to the measure of your word. Challenge all the opinions, even mine, with your word, so that we can see this thing clearly. Let us get out of the traditions of man. I was dealing with the traditions when it came to with the Sabbath day. A lot of people fell out with me when I said I don't do the 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. when I do the morning. And it's like my conviction and their conviction is different. There's no reason for them to build a wall in a relationship. Y'all mend those relationships that are lost off of that. Me and them, so that we are able to connect and be mishpachah and do your will and be about your kingdom and not about our individual thought, our individual perspectives, and our feelings. Let's put forth your will being done over our feelings. Thank you that I'm not just moving off what I heard, what I thought, but I'm trying to find the truth so that I may fulfill my purpose in you. Yada Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom. Shanquil Yah, One Vision Ministry. Shabbat Shalom. Yada Yahuwah. Shanquilla Carter. Ecod Chajan Sheriff.